Test 1, 2.
Sunday of the season, we call to mind the inclusion section of the proposed revision of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws, which says, "We strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons who share our values. We commit to being an association of congregations that empowers and enhances everyone's participation, especially those with historically marginalized identities."
Our opening hymn is number 170, "We Are a Gentle, Angry People." Please rise as you are willing and able.
Good morning. I'm Bill Brock, he, his pronouns, your celebrant this morning.
And I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, Zir or he, him, interim minister.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Our building is located on land that has been home to humans for 12,000 years, starting with people of woodland culture and later the Iowa, Sauk, and Meskwaki. Other animals, such as the blue walleye, declared extinct in 1983, once swam in the waters of these lands. As we enter this space, the ghosts of humans and other animals past are among us. We are called to join in the work of education, reparation, and healing for all species.
Our purpose is to associate ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, hoping thereby to prove helpful one to another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
This bond of union is reiterated in our mission: love radically, grow ethically and spiritually, and serve justly.
It's a blessing you were born. It matters what you do. Your experience of the divine is true, and you don't have to go it alone.
Today is the 12th Sunday of spring. The moon was new on Thursday and is now waxing crescent. The Jewish holiday, Shavuot, begins at sundown on Tuesday, June 11. Shavuot comes 7 weeks after Passover and brings together a harvest celebration with the commemoration of Moses receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai.
On the Christian calendar, today is the 10th of 34 Sundays of ordinary time between Easter and Advent.
A special welcome to our visitors. For those of you on Zoom, thanks for tuning in. And please be sure your mic is muted. If you're here with children, there is childcare, or feel free to keep them seated with you or utilize our play area in the back of the auditorium, which today is specially stocked with a number of Pride-related children's books.
Our connection circles are small groups that gather to explore the monthly theme and build relationship. It's a key way we live out our mission to grow ethically and spiritually. Please sign up if you're not in one. Our theme for the month of June is hope. Issues of connecting on that theme are now available in the basket just outside the doors. We begin with the lighting of our chalice.
Please say with me the chalice lighting words in your order of service. Our chalice binds us together in remembrance that our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world. Our responsive invocation is number 576, a litany of restoration. Please respond all together with the words in italics. If, recognizing the interdependence of all life, we strive to build community, the strength we gather will be our salvation. If you are black and I am white,
if you are female and I am male,
if you are older and I am younger,
if you are progressive and I am conservative,
if you are straight and I am gay,
if you are Christian and I am Jewish,
if we join spirits as brothers and sisters, the pain of our aloneness will be lessened, and that does matter. In this spirit, we build community and move toward restoration. For our sung invocation, words are in your order of service.
True. Today's story is 'Twas the Night Before Pride by Joanna McClintock. 'Twas the night before Pride, a warm evening in June. All the people got ready with the rise of the moon.
The drag queens all brushed their wigs with great care, and the bikers checked their tires to make sure they had air.
All across the city, people's outfits were planned and instruments polished for the queer marching band. My mom told us all,
We should go to bed early.
so that's kind of mom who's more boyish than girly.
While Mama finished packing our snacks in a bag, Sammy started chewing on the edge of our flag.
As I finished my sign, which laid on the floor, I remembered the prides I'd been to before. All day we will walk in the streets up and down. Pride's one of the best celebrations around. There are floats and loud music and rainbows and glitter. Last year we ran into our babysitter.
This is the year, baby Sammy's first pride. Can we tell the whole story? I hopefully cried. So we sat on the couch, a mom on each side, and took turns telling the tale of the very first pride.
A long time ago, in 1969, there wasn't a pride march, it was a less fair time. Queer people all over of each shape and size didn't have rights, at least not recognized.
So much of their lives they had to keep hidden. Even their clothing was sometimes forbidden.
Stonewall was a place where it was safe to be proud, but police would storm in to say it wasn't allowed.
So one hot night in June, people stopped being quiet. They decided to fight and they started a riot. More and more gathered to fight back in the heat. Some started a kick line in the middle of the streets.
Police broke up the crowd night after night, but the people stood strong, knowing this wasn't right. So it began a march that spread worldwide to show everyone it's good to have pride.
It sometimes happens we're not given respect. It can take a long time for some to accept. And that's why every year we all gather together and march in the streets no matter the weather.
To know that we matter, to show we exist, and that where there's oppression, there will be we who resist.
So pride's not just about tutus and rainbow suspenders. It's about rights for queers and all our beautiful genders.
Pride's a day that is crowded. It's a day that is long. It's a day that means together we are strong.
As I closed my eyes, I thought of pride's past. Pride means to me, being yourself is a blast.
So today, I go to march with my family and cheer. Happy Pride to all. It's great our family is here.
Memphis in June, a shady veranda under a Sunday blue sky. Memphis in June, and cousin Amanda's bacon a rhubarb pie. I can hear the clock inside ticking a talking. Everything is peacefully dandy. I can see old Granny cross the street still a-rockin', watching the neighbors go by. Memphis in June, and sweet oleanders filling the air with perfume. Up jumps the moon to make it that much grander. It's paradise, won't you take my advice? Nothing's half as nice as Memphis in June. walk inside, ticking and talking. Everything is peacefully dandy. And I can see old Granny cross the street, still a-rockin' and watching those neighbors go by. Memphis in June and sweet oleanders filling the air with perfume. Up jumps the moon to make it that much grander. It's paradise, won't you take my advice? Nothing's half as nice as Memphis in June. Nothing's half as nice as Memphis in June.
Thank you, Barb. I like clapping. My name is Barb Glass. I'm a pastoral care associate for our congregation. If you are going through a significant transition, we invite you to speak to me or any other member of our pastoral care team, or email pastoralcareteam@ucdsm.org. Pastoral care associates are here to process with you any significant transition. We now collectively bear witness to journeys within our community. Reverend Kent McCusick, who retired as the minister of our neighbor UU congregation in Ames in 2022 and has been a guest minister in this pulpit, died Tuesday, June 4th of lung disease. His husband, James, and other family members are working on service arrangements. We would like to send a note of sympathy to our Ames friends, so please stop by the Caring Ministry desk after the service to sign the card, and if you don't, you know I will hound you. Please sign the card. Let us now share together the names of anyone we know who could use some special care and attention. You may call the name out loud or type it in the chat. As we share these names, may the love of this community hold them all.
Dear Spirit of Love, using excerpts from John O'Donohue's poem, For a Leader, let's offer our blessings to these world leaders. Claudia Sheinbaum, newly elected President of Mexico and the first woman to win a general election in North America. May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those who meet you. When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway to renewal and refinement. Prime Minister Robert Fico of Slovakia, who was shot and seriously wounded in an assassination attempt. May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholesome words, the encouragement of the appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity. Donald Trump, the former President of the United States and presumptive 2024 Republican nominee convicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. May you be hospitable to criticism. May you never put yourself at the center of things. May you act not from arrogance, but out of service. May those who work for you see you and respect you. Pope Francis, Vatican City, Rome, who expressed firm opposition to the idea of ordaining Catholic women as deacons, raising doubts about the possibility that the ongoing 3-year synodal process could move forward on the issue. May you have good friends to mirror your blind spots. May leadership be for you a true adventure of growth. And for the LGBTQ leaders who demonstrate strength and courage, including Gabriel Attal, France's Prime Minister, the youngest person currently serving as a head of state or government in the world. Edgar Renkaviks, Latvia's foreign minister since 2011, who became president in July 2023. He became the first openly gay head of state in a European Union country. Ana Brnabić, Serbia's first female head of government, recently became president of the National Assembly of Serbia. In June 2017, she was the country's first openly lesbian prime minister. Bandi Kiki, Cameroonian blogger, an LGBT activist who has been called the most hated English speaker on social media in Cameroon. To all of you, may you have a mind that loves frontiers, so that you can evoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular eye. Spirit of life and love and generosity, may we summon you when we falter, that you will carry us when we cannot see the way.
May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world, and may we not look away when we are needed. May we confront what is cruel, heal what is broken, and delight in what is good. We light 3 candles, one for the joys and sorrows shared aloud, one for those shared in writing, and one for those held silently among us. For all of these, we now observe a minute of silence.
We'll sing this through 3 times.
When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe out peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
I've been an Iowa resident for 40 years now. These past 4 decades have seen a vast change in the way LGBTQ folks are viewed by their fellow Iowans and by their government. Most of that change has been for the better, though we've certainly seen backtracking as well. Let's go back in time 30 years to 1994. Though I was not at the Iowa Democratic Party state convention that year, I later heard about something that happened there. Seen in the light of today's Iowa, it seems hard to believe. In 1994, the State Platform Committee, as usual, sent a long draft of planks to be taken up on the convention floor. One of the planks was a call for equal rights to marry for all Iowans, same-sex as well as opposite-sex couples. Party leadership was apoplectic, assuming that if the plank passed, it would lead to certain defeat for statewide candidates in the fall. They succeeded in getting it stricken from the platform before the delegates even had a chance to consider it. That's the Democratic Party, folks. Obviously, the other parties didn't even consider such a thing. Fast forward to 2007. Polk County District Court Judge Robert Hansen issued a ruling that it violates the state constitution for the state to deny same-sex couples the right to marry. The next day, he stayed his ruling, pending the outcome of the state's appeal. However, Judge Hansen, under authority of state law, issued a waiver for a couple who had applied for a license after his ruling, but before the stay was in place. And on August 31, 2007, that couple became the first legally married same-sex couple in Iowa in a ceremony officiated by our own senior minister, Mark Stringer, on his front lawn in Des Moines. 2 years later, the Iowa Supreme Court issued its opinion in the case, a unanimous ruling declaring it a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the state constitution for the state to deny Iowans the right to marry based on sexual orientation, making Iowa the third state to legalize same-sex marriage. The response of those who opposed same-sex marriage was swift. In the 2010 general election, the three Supreme Court justices on the ballot for retention each lost their positions on the court, including the Chief Justice. However, in separate rulings in 2012 and 2013, the court ordered state officials to treat same-sex married couples the same as every other and to list same-sex parents on the death certificate of a stillborn child in one case and on birth certificates of the children of a same-sex married couple in the other case. This up and down history shows a bending toward inclusion and equal rights, but one that is akin to a ragbri segment in the driftless area of northeast Iowa, down one hill and up the other. No doubt there are Iowans who, given the chance, would attempt to repeal marriage equality. In fact, some state legislators have tried just that, and they have failed so far. Two things stand in their way. The U.S. Supreme Court's 2015 opinion establishing marriage equality as a right to be enjoyed by all Americans, no matter their state of residence, and strong public opinion in support of that right. Public support in Iowa for marriage equality has increased steadily over time. Now, if we go back to a national poll taken in the late 1980s, support for same-sex marriage was only at about 10 to 20%. A poll of Iowans taken in 2011, after it became the law of the state, showed a split public, 46% in support, 45% opposed, with a 3.5% margin of error. In a poll result released last December, 60% supported marriage equality in Iowa and only 35% opposed it. The margin of error there was less than 1%. Now, the smiles on the hundreds of folks I saw downtown at Pride Fest this past Friday night tells me we're definitely heading in the right direction. Even more compelling for me is the overwhelming pride I feel when I volunteer for our Trans Lives Festival and I see how at home trans folks and their friends and family feel here, nestled in the arms of this congregation. I long for the day when our LGBTQ friends feel that way wherever they happen to be, whether at home or anywhere else. We now come to the offering. Recalling the words of the inclusion section of the UUA bylaws, we strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons who share our values. We commit to being an association of congregations that empowers and enhances everyone's participation, especially those with historically marginalized identities. In gratitude, then, we give, for in gratitude, we receive.
I'm going to talk about nature today, about what is natural. And we'll see how our understanding of nature became a concept of natural law and what that means. And then I'll point to some very different lessons we might take from nature. I'm not going to get to it for a little while, but I want to let you know that that's coming. It's our mission to grow ethically and spiritually, and I think to grow ethically, we should develop our repertoire of concepts for reflecting on ethical questions. And among those concepts are natural law theories of ethics, which, in accordance with our mission, we will look at in a little bit. First, let us note on this Pride Month that we Unitarian Universalists have been at the forefront of progress on LGBTQ justice, and we can be proud of that. We should remember, however, that while we've been ahead of the curve on attitudes about LGBTQ folk, we have sometimes not been very far ahead of the curve. As early as the 1950s, some Unitarian ministers were officiating at services of union for same-sex couples. Good for us. But many of our ministers then were refusing to do such services, and those that did sometimes didn't tell their congregations and didn't hold those services in their churches. It was the 1950s. Since 1970, our Unitarian Universalist Association has been on record as supporting the rights and worth of lesbian, gay, and bisexual persons. Still, the lived experience of these folk in UU congregations was often painful. In the 1980s, our National Unitarian Universalist Association conducted a multi-year nationwide study of UU attitudes about sexual orientation. The findings exposed many negative attitudes, deep prejudices, and profound ignorance that resulted in LGBTQ people being excluded from full participation in UU congregations. In 1987, then president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, William Schultz, addressed the General Assembly that June. And Reverend Schultz said, "We Unitarian Universalists have been the religious leaders in the area of gay and lesbian rights, in our establishment of a denominational office, in our support of ministers who perform services of union. But at the moment, our values and principles are being sorely tested, not just by prejudice from outside our doors, but by homophobia from within. Let me put it as directly as I can. Far too many of our congregations are choosing not to call or even consider gay or lesbian ministers solely on the basis of their affectional orientation. When we hear questions like these posed about gay or lesbian candidates, but will she talk about anything other than homosexuality? But will we become a gay church? But will he be able to counsel heterosexuals? But will the community accept her? When we hear questions like this, we know we are in the grip of a profound terror. My guess is that back in 1987, those questions bounced around in this congregation if the possibility of a gay or lesbian minister were discussed. Some of you have been around here long enough to remember. And if you've seen your own attitudes grow and change along, and you have seen your own attitudes grow and change along with the shift of your fellow congregants around you. Reverend Schultz's 1987 address to the General Assembly went on to say, "The fear of same-sex love runs deep in Western culture. But I beg us to understand that if such fear is permitted to control us, we will be in violation of everything which Unitarian Universalism stands for in the world. It is not enough to say passively and contentedly, why, of course, gays and lesbians are welcome in our congregation if they choose to come. What is required is the recognition that gay and lesbian people are already members of every single congregation on this continent. The issue is whether they feel supported enough to make their presence known. What we require is the courage and wisdom to acknowledge our own fears, both gay and straight, and to take active steps to make the welcome known to the gay and lesbian community. Back in 1987, we may have been ahead of the curve, maybe, but we were definitely still on that learning curve and with a ways to go. In response to the attitudes revealed in our study in 1990, our UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, launched the Welcoming Congregation program along with the Welcoming Congregation Handbook with lesson plans for 10 workshops. Congregations were urged to seek certification as a welcoming congregation, and to get that certification required completing a 2-year education and discussion program designed to change those attitudes, correct those prejudices, and replace ignorance with knowledge and understanding. The first UU congregation to receive certification received it by the end of 1991. One thing you may have noticed about Reverend Schultz's 1987 address was that it was all about the L and the G and nothing about the BTQ. The 1999 edition of the Welcoming Congregation Handbook was substantially expanded to be more inclusive of transgender identity and bisexual identity, as well as race and ethnicity. 4 new workshops were added: racism and homophobia, heterosexism, the radical right, bisexuality and biphobia, and transgender identity, what it means. In 2003, in the case of Goodrich versus Department of Health, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruled that same-sex couples could not be excluded from marriage rights in Massachusetts. Hillary Goodrich led a total of 14 plaintiffs in that case, 7 same-sex couples. And half of those 14, including Hillary Goodrich and her partner Julie Corby, were UUs. In 2006, 16 years after our Welcoming Congregation program launched, the milestone 500th congregation to attain Welcoming Congregation status was reached. There were then, as today, just over 1,000 UU congregations nationwide, and we passed the halfway mark of our congregations being welcoming later in 2006. Today, most of our congregations have the status of LGBTQ welcoming. 2008, the Connecticut Supreme Court required that state to recognize same-sex marriage. After Massachusetts and Connecticut, few people expected Iowa to be the 3rd state to recognize same-sex marriage, but as Bill mentioned, we were in 2009, although we have certainly had backlash about that. Through it all, we UUs have been out in front, even if often only a little in front, in understanding and welcoming LGBTQ folk. Many of us are LGBTQ folk, and what straight folk learn from LGBTQ folk and what LGBTQ folk learn from other LGBTQ folk, what all of us learn is what perfect looks like. To explain what I mean by that, we'll have to look further back in history. There's an idea that goes back in Western civilization for centuries and still occasionally manifests as the idea that LGBTQ activity is unnatural. What have been called sodomy laws were still on the books in 14 states in 2003 when the Supreme Court's Lawrence versus Texas decision invalidated them. Those laws often made reference to unnatural acts. I know that very few of us would subscribe to the idea that LGBTQ activity is unnatural, but let's explore where this terrible idea came from so we can better combat it when we see it cropping up. The natural law, supposedly, is universally valid and therefore natural and discoverable by reason alone. The idea is that moral and legal order derives from the nature of the cosmos or the nature of human beings. Natural law consists of a set of principles that can be seen to be true by our natural light or our reason. There are religious versions in which the natural law expresses God's will for creation, and non-religious versions in which human nature establishes conditions for human flourishing, and the morally right thing to do is to follow what our nature establishes. When I was young and was much taken with the idea of civil disobedience to unjust laws, this idea that there were principles higher than positive laws passed by Congress and approved by the courts was very appealing, and that's still appealing. This idea that there are principles of justice higher than statutes, principles which courts try to discern and apply, is an important and even necessary idea. Courts, of course, sometimes get it wrong, and may be criticized when they do or when we think they do. The court, of course, might be getting it right, and its critics the ones that are wrong, but we can't even have that discussion unless we presuppose the existence of such higher principles of justice. Presupposing them, we may then proceed to debate about what they are. That much of the idea of natural law I have no quarrel with. What we're really doing in such debates, I think, is trying to organize and articulate our moral intuitions in a way that might provide some guidance for us going forward. I will pause at that point and resume from there after our interlude. So are these principles, as natural law theory says they are, discoverable by reason? Well, they're certainly discussable by reason. Human beings can make arguments to each other about them, and we do. But the principles are more invented than discovered. The dream of reason is to produce arguments so compelling that all people, at least all people whose reasoning is working properly, will arrive at the same conclusions. And that is a pipe dream. It's a delusion. What natural law theory fails to account for is that reason, diligently applied by motivated reasoners, can always craft a counter-argument to any argument. The dream of arriving through a process we self-congratulatorily call reason at a universally agreed set of principles we can then inerrantly use in all our moral deliberation ain't gonna happen. And when we expect that it could happen, when we expect reason to eventually yield universal agreement on principles that will settle all moral questions, what actually does happen isn't good. In particular, let's look at how natural law theory came to call certain sexual or affectional orientations unnatural. Aristotle, my good friend, gave us a version of natural law which said that what is natural and therefore good for any being is for that being to realize its telos, its end or purpose or goal, the reason for its existence and the ultimate aim toward which it strives. Everything has a telos, and the good for that thing is to become what its telos is for it to be. The telos of an acorn is an oak tree. The telos of a knife is to cut. And for Aristotle, the telos of a human being is, in a word, flourishing. Actually, his Greek word is eudaimonia, variously translated as flourishing, well-being, or happiness. I'll go with flourishing. Our nature has an aim, and what makes something good then is that it facilitates the realizing of our aim, our nature. What's good for a dog is what is perfective or completing of its doggy nature, what brings it to its fulfillment. And what's good for a human is what is perfective or completing or fulfilling of human nature. And that's our flourishing. And that doesn't sound so terrible. Flourishing is surely a good thing. But you may have noticed that what's being assumed is that all humans have the same nature, and that perfecting or completing or fulfilling what we are as humans will be the same in all humans. Aristotle, we love you, man, but that's messed up. And then, in Aquinas' hands in particular, the idea that everything had a purpose applied to each of our parts. Hence, it was an abuse of our reproductive organs to use them for anything other than their natural purpose, which was to reproduce. Sexual acts that are not ordered toward procreation violated natural law. They were unnatural. Aquinas became the official philosopher of Catholicism, and so to this day, Catholic teaching is that neither same-sex sexual activity nor even artificial birth control is permissible, because that's using the reproductive organs for something other than their purpose to reproduce. Most of us, I think, recoil from Aquinas' conclusion, but it's worth taking some time to clarify why. For one thing, we might say, we shouldn't look to nature for answers to our moral questions. For another thing, supposing we do look to nature. We now know a lot about nature today that Aristotle and Aquinas didn't know. We know, for instance, that species evolve. If Aristotle had been aware of species evolution, and if he had applied his notion of telos not just to individuals, but to species, he probably would have said that the telos of a species is to perfect itself through gradual incremental improvements in its functioning down through the generations. But already we run into a quandary. Take, for instance, the last common ancestor of humans, chimpanzees, and bonobos. What was the telos of that last common ancestor, that species? Was its telos as a species to evolve into humans, or into chimps, or into bonobos? Which one of those is a fulfilling, a perfecting of that last common ancestor, while the other two are mere aberrations? That's not an answerable question, though I kind of like the case for bonobos myself. If we're going to take our lessons from nature, then the first lesson is that there are an unimaginably large number of branching possibilities, none of them better than others, and none of them having a telos other than to keep on branching out new possibilities and creative new forms. If we're going to apply nature's model to human society, then we would celebrate our branching out new possibilities, creative, sometimes, let's say, flamboyant, new forms for loving, creative new experiments with roles and identities. That's nature's way. Nature's model is diversity, experimentation, and unpredictable change. And for manifesting that in the social realm, we are especially grateful for our LGBTQ folk, especially proud. If we are going to take our lessons from nature, there's an even more radical lesson here. Gradual incremental improvements in functioning down through the generations is only part of how evolution works. Sometimes the change isn't about things working better, like eyesight getting sharper or intestines getting better at digesting a new food source. Sometimes the change is a complete repurposing. In the process of evolution, parts that evolved to serve one purpose get appropriated for an entirely different purpose. I really want us to understand this feature of how nature works, what natural really is. So let me give several examples. Mammalian forelimbs gradually evolved in one direction into bat wings. Evolving down a different branch, they turned into dolphin fins. But the original purpose of forelimbs was for walking on. Even grasping things with them was an innovation. Certainly when they first emerged, they had nothing to do with either flying or swimming. Certain insect antennae turned into mandibles with a function completely different from antennae. There's a jawbone in dinosaurs, fish, and reptiles that emerged for reasons that had nothing to do with hearing, but in mammals, that small bone was appropriated and made into a part of our auditory system, essential for our hearing. An ancestor of wasps and bees had an ovipositor, an egg-laying tube. It was there to lay eggs, not to sting with, and yet it was appropriated and made into a stinger. Finally, before there were land animals, certain fish developed a swim bladder, which they could fill with gas, usually air, and this allowed the fish to stay at a given depth without expending energy on swimming. The swim bladder evolved into the lung of the earliest lungfish, and from there into the lungs of land animals. This device for staying at a given depth in water turned into the essential step for moving onto land, which was entirely different from the purpose for which it originally evolved. Structures that serve one purpose get put to very different purposes. It happens all the time. Nothing could be more, shall we say it, natural. It's easy to miss just how radical a point this is. Through millennia of Western civilization, we have been making moral arguments from nature, that certain actions were unnatural and therefore wrong because they violated something's purpose. Turns out, nature herself repurposes organs. Building upon its inheritance, the lungfish transcended that inheritance and became a new thing on this earth. Bats and dolphins, mandibular and stinging insects, mammalian auditory systems, and one way or another, ultimately every complex feature of every species build upon its inheritance to transcend that inheritance and become a new thing on this earth. If we are to draw lessons from nature, the lesson to draw is this: creative new purposes are just as natural and just as important as incremental improvements in fulfilling a prior purpose. I said that what straight folk learn from LGBTQ folk and what LGBTQ folk learn from other LGBTQ folk, what all of us learn, is what perfect looks like. Perfect, we can now see, is not about getting better at some preconceived ideal. Perfect is the ever-branching creative repurposing of whatever we find ourselves with. Perfect is the discovery or invention of new ideals rather than attainment of a preconceived ideal. Perfect is becoming who we are, being ourselves just as we are, just as we love, just as we are becoming whatever transitioning we may be in the midst of. How can we not take pride in that? How can we not be welcoming of that? May it be so. Amen.
We're now going to sing hymn 1014 in the Teal hymnal. Please note that the lyrics have changed since the printing. Instead of saying standing on the side of love, we say answering the call to love. Please rise as you are willing and able.
bruised and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound. Haunted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
Please say with me now our unison chalice extinguishing words as those of you at home extinguish your chalice. May our faith sustain us, our hope inspire us, and our love surround us as we go our separate ways, knowing that we will gather again in this beloved community.
Take courage, friends. The path is often challenging and has many curves and blind spots. Yet take courage, for this is also true. You are not alone. Go in peace, making peace.